Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T, and I hope you're all having a lovely day. Today, I'm talking once again about the Sebastian Rogers case. And I have to say, I can't believe the depths to which people will go in some of these true crime cases. Once again, in the case of Sebastian Rogers, people are losing sight of Sebastian, a vulnerable child who should be front and center at all times. A lot of attention is currently being given to when exactly Seth Rogers first hooked up with Katie, Sebastian's biological mother. And by hooked up, I mean intimately hooked up. Wink, wink, if you know what I mean. This seems to be the latest campaign waged against Seth by some people associated with the Proudfoots. Seth is currently 44 years old. Katie is 35. There's a 9-year age gap between them. Sebastian was born on December 7th of 2008. This means that Katie was 19 years old when she gave birth to Sebastian, and Seth was 28. There's no shame in that. But there is much ado being made about Seth saying that Sebastian was the first child of his and Katie's that Katie agreed to keep, as in give birth to. As a result, some people who want to tarnish Seth's reputation are saying that he is a child SO for getting together with Katie when she was a minor. But before people burn Seth at the stake, shouldn't there be proof of this? When exactly did they start hanging out? Now, I personally have not wanted to attack Seth because from what I've heard, he was at work when Sebastian went missing. And Sebastian was in his mother, Katie's custody that day. Also, Seth was the only parent that I saw searching for Sebastian boots on the ground. And for solely these reasons, Seth hasn't been at the top of my personal list of suspects. What I want to know now is, how is Seth's relationship with Katie prior to Sebastian's birth relevant to this case? Why would it matter at this point when Seth and Katie got together? From what I know, Katie has never pressed charges against Seth. Is that something she wants to pursue now, while Sebastian is still missing? Wouldn't her time and energy be better spent looking for Sebastian first? How will crucifying Seth for his behavior many moons ago help anyone get closer to the truth about where Sebastian is? I'm honestly asking because I just don't see how he is a suspect if indeed he has an ironclad alibi for the period when Sebastian went missing. This isn't a tit-for-tat thing, as in you question the Proudfoots and then you have to spend equal time questioning Seth. A lot of us have scrutinized Katie and Chris Proudfoot more than we have Seth Rogers. And this is because, 1, Katie was the last person with Sebastian on Sunday, at least that we know about. The last person with the victim is the first suspect. And 2, Chris Proudfoot has admitted that he and Katie wanted to remove Sebastian from their home. They either wanted him to go to a school for boys or to Seth Rogers' house full time. And they wanted Sebastian out of the house sooner rather than later. And that's what you could call a motive. And 3, the Child Protective Service report or reports we heard about were for Katie and Chris Proudfoot, not for Seth Rogers. That's a red flag that you can't ignore. Again, Seth Rogers allegedly has an alibi. The word is that he was at work, which is allegedly corroborated by security video footage. If true, Seth was miles away from where Sebastian was when he went missing. Sebastian's mother, Katie Proudfoot, told us that she was the last person with Sebastian before he vanished. And indeed, we saw her with Sebastian at the Texas Roadhouse on Sunday night. The last person to see the missing person / victim, again, is the first suspect. That is a common principle in all criminal investigations. That's why the spotlight has primarily been focused on Katie and her husband, Chris Proudfoot. Sebastian was with Katie all day Sunday before she reported him missing on Monday. Katie told us that the doors to the home were locked. There were no signs of a break-in or a break-out. And she told us that Sebastian left home in the middle of the night on a winter's day without his shoes and his cell phone. None of these details make sense. Why is this such a key aspect of a missing persons case? Let me tell you. 1. Access and opportunity. The last person with the missing person usually had the most direct access to that person, which could indicate potential opportunity to commit a crime if foul play is suspected. Thus, Katie had both access and opportunity. Inconsistencies in the story. Investigators often look for discrepancies or inconsistencies in the last person's account of events, which could raise red flags and warrant further scrutiny. Some of Katie's inconsistent statements include her description of the sound she said she heard in Sebastian's room around 10 p.m., an hour after she sent him to bed. Katie initially described it as Sebastian perhaps playing, but in a later interview, she described it as a thud. Those are two very different sounds with very different connotations. Plain doesn't sound like anything to worry about. A thud sounds like something that could indicate a hard fall or a blow to someone's head. A thud has ominous connotations. That sound is a key detail from the night before Katie reported Sebastian missing. So you would think she would strive to describe it as accurately and consistently as possible. But note that being the last person seen with Sebastian doesn't automatically make Katie guilty of a crime. She may be the first suspect, but she may not be the guilty person. It simply means that she is a key point of the investigation due to her unique position of being the last person with her missing son. I'm saying all this to explain why so much scrutiny has been placed on Katie and Chris Proudfoot and not as much on Seth Rogers. Even if Seth is a bad person in some people's eyes, because of him pursuing a little girl when he was an adult, that sounds really bad. But it doesn't mean that he had anything to do with Sebastian's disappearance. And that's why we're all here, right? How does us talking about Seth's dirty laundry move the case forward if Seth was at work and has an alibi? How does it shed light on where Sebastian ended up? You could say all three of the parents are sketchy in some ways. But no matter how sketchy Seth Rogers may be, if he has an alibi for when Sebastian went missing, then he's not involved. At least he wasn't involved in the actual disappearance, meaning the hours when Sebastian went poof in the night. This is why we scrutinize Katie and Chris Proudfoot. Seth got a free pass from me in many ways because of his alibi. If that alibi turns out to not be true, well, then that's a different story. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time on Bed Crime Stories. Please like, share, and subscribe, and consider a membership if you appreciate my work. See you next time.